In our last episode, we had discussed about what asthma is. In this episode, we are going to discuss the pathophysiology of asthma. What we are going to discuss is pathophysiology of asthma. So before we go into the pathophysiology, that is the functional changes that occur in asthma, we need to know the normal physiology and refresh the working of respiratory system. Our respiratory system is like an upside down tree. Upside down tree. The tree's sturdiest part is the trunk. The trachea can be compared with the trunk. It divides into two bronchus or two bronchi. Trachea and bronchus are always kept open. We have got cartilages to keep them open. But as we go to the finer branches, like bronchus give rise to bronchioles, and bronchioles go to terminal bronchioles, then we get respiratory bronchioles, and finally the alveolar duct and alveoli. Cartilage support is there up to the level of bronchioles. Just before the bronchioles the support goes out, and as we go further, as the branches become narrow and narrower, the cartilages are replaced with elastic tissue. Elastic tissue. So this elastic tissue or the smooth muscle is under involuntary control. So these smooth muscles may contract, and contraction of these smooth muscles cut off the air supply. So why this happens? More often than not, asthma is associated with allergy. Suppose an asthmatic person has inhaled air. More often than not, asthma is associated with allergy. Suppose an asthmatic person has inhaled air which contains something that can trigger an attack. The substance comes in contact with the inner lining of the respiratory tube. The lining from its previous experience knows this is a bad guy. To stop the exposure further, it instructs the smooth muscle to contract. The lining releases some chemical mediators like histamine. It summons some special cells by releasing a particular type of substance called cytokines. So together these cytokines and chemokines initiate a chain of events, a series of events that can lead to constriction of bronchioles. The walls of the respiratory tubes have special lining. They are made with pseudo-stratified columnar ciliated epithelial cell. Pseudo-stratified. They are single layer cells, but they fold in such a way that it looks like many layers. Stratified columnar ciliated epithelial cells with goblet cells. Once the goblet cells swell up and burst, mucus comes onto the surface of the wall. Microbes and fine particles stick to this mucus, but overproduction of the mucus may clog the bore of of the tube. Hence, there is breathing difficulty. So you see this sequence of events. Some antigens come. It leads to contact. It leads to allergy by contacting the bronchial mucosa. There is production of antibodies. Antibody attached to the mast cells, which are resident cells of the bronchioles. It leads to histamine release, and histamine, when it's released to the tissue, can swell it up. So smooth muscle contraction takes place. And tissues swell up. Antigen, contact with the bronchial mucosa, production of the antibodies. Antibodies attached to the mast cells. There is histamine release. And at the same time, smooth muscle contraction and swelling of the tubes. This will lead to the narrowing of the airways. You can see on the board a cross section of bronchioles. This is a cross section of the normal bronchiole, and this is a cross section from a person who is asthmatic. You see, the innermost lumen is wide in a normal person, air can pass freely. The lumen has narrowed down in an asthmatic. What has happened here, at the periphery of the tissue, you can see the mast cells. In the asthmatic person, this is replaced with histamine. This histamine has made the tissue to swell up, and there is a lot of mucus within the from the mucous membrane also, the mucus has come up, and that has partially clogged the opening, and significant narrowing has taken place. So, mast cell has burst up to give release to histamine, and that has given swelling and the classical symptoms, that is swelling, redness, pain and temperature, all have come into the forefront. The person is suffering from an asthmatic flare-up. In the next section, we will be seeing how these symptoms can be handled.